Hi, kitty cats. I am Amethysta Herrick, your hostess for the Purplepaw, a bi-weekly discussion from your friends down here at the Purplepaw clan, exploring the intersection of identity and gender, sexuality and intimacy, and community and spirituality. This content right here is being brought to you by supporters of the Purplepaw clan. If you're already a supporter, first of all, let me just thank you once again for your ongoing support. Subscribers not only receive new content directly to their email inboxes as soon as it publishes, but are also able to interact with every contributor directly. And I know I want to interact with me, and you probably should too. So if you would like to support shows just like this one, as well as the other podcasts, videos, and written articles by our contributors, I hope you will consider subscribing using links you're going to find down there in the show notes. I am very, very honored and excited to be talking to my guest today, Anne Gillaspie. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Amy. May I call you Amy, or is it Amethysta?
No, Amy is great.
Perfect.
I've known you for what, like three years or something?
It feels a lot longer than we've actually known each other, which is the mark of a great relationship.
I think so. There you go. So Anne was on a Tuesday live stream I did some time ago. But yeah, we have I've known Anne for a while now. It's funny because I actually put together a whole set of questions that I'm looking at, and it's just like in the past time that we've been talking about, I'm like, oh good, I get to throw all these out. Because it's mostly, well, not all of them, but mostly professional. And I actually kind of wanted more to talk to you about personal stuff, Anne, which is good that you're so willing to talk. Anyway, here's my real introduction. Anne is a brand therapist, a podcaster, and I made this up, but you can use this, a worshiper of why.
I love that. I love that. Well, I do have my curious tattoo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So every time I talk to someone new who doesn't know how curious I am, and I ask why all the time, I'm like, oh no, I literally mark my body with the word.
Yeah. I think you should. That's the way we should all do this. The only thing is we're going to have a lot of people walking around with asshole tattooed on there.
Unfortunately, it is the reality.
That would be the bummer. Yes. Yeah. Anne is also the founder of two companies, at least that I'm aware of, Fix and Form, which is a brand therapy company, and then Tend to Launch, which, I mean, I've actually worked with both Fix and Form and Tend to Launch. Yep. And Tend to Launch, if you want to talk about it, we can. But what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, also your podcast, Only Founders, which is relatively new, so maybe you want to go out and look at that. All right, well, I know we've been talking, but I always love the origin story. You are really into this idea of people finding and expressing who they are, and that seems to go across both personal, like each person, and also the company itself. That's really been the business that I've known you to be in. Why is that? Why was that so big of a thing to you? You know, what suddenly inspired this? Why do you do what you do?
What's really interesting about this question is the way I think of answering it is like old Anne, years and years ago, was foreshadowing all of this healing and this work that she was going to do later in life that I didn't know I needed. And I always was intuitive from a really young age. I think that was perhaps my intuition coming forth and saying, at some point you are going to find out who you truly are, but not yet. So I created Fix and Form, which is just kind of like the traditional brand and marketing agency, but it started as really just strategic branding and me as a consultant before I grew the team and have more robust branding and marketing support. Mm-hmm. I started that in 2014. So I've had it for 11 years. Gosh. And in owning that business for 11 years, I think it's interesting. I don't really know how and why it came to be, only that my career before I started my own business was the brand manager for CertaPro Painters, which is like the national house painting and commercial painting.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I started in marketing. I have a degree in marketing. I have a degree in theater. I grew up doing theater and studying business in college. So both of those degrees together. And in my 20s, I did sales, marketing, advertising, this is kind of the path we were just talking about, and you'll get this from the previous conversation we just shared,
Yeah.
which was I felt like marketing was inauthentic. What I was learning how to do with writing sales copy and advertising and managing media and looking at marketing, I always felt like marketing had the potential to be manipulative and deceiving. And if you didn't need it, we're going to make you fucking need it.
Yeah.
And
What do you mean has the potential? Isn't that sort of...
I'm going to state politically that I am a politician in business, in the fact that not everybody is skewed. There are some really ethical marketers out there. It has the potential, based on the human behind it, to be really inauthentic, right? So when I realized I was a really great salesperson, because I'm a relator, I'm a relationship person, I collect good people and keep them for life. When you do that, you're an amazing salesperson. I realized, holy shit, it kind of scared me. I'm a really good salesperson. I could sell and spin anything. And I was like, whoa. And that got scary. So in my 20s, I was like, I think I'm too good. And that was scary when I realized I could use that to make more money at work. And that felt wrong. And so it wasn't even like, I'm not saying that because of the CertaPro job. It was like any sales job I had, or any job where I was marketing and writing copy and getting people to buy into something and increase adoption of a program. I was raised by very narcissistic adults. And so I have learned manipulation and emotional manipulation at its finest. And I think being a child of that, you get really smart of how to spin things the way you want and need to control the emotional outcome. And it's scary. And that's what sales is, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, marketing was kind of feeling yuck. And at CertaPro, I had an amazing brand consultant I looked up to. He recently passed away and I miss him a lot. Edward Lehman. Yeah. He was profound. And I said, can you please mentor me? I want to learn all of the ways of branding. I realized that branding was psychological, and it was the why. It was the curiosity of digging into someone or some business's being, right? And who they were. And it was actually flipping. So marketing, you're only looking at outward, like how can we control what everybody out there does with us? Whereas branding was very inward. And it was what can we control of who we are and how we represent ourselves. And then you make the decision. And the marketing can then carry on the brand to get people interested in it, because the marketing is just communicating what the brand is, in my opinion. The marketing should not be to sell. That the salesperson is the one to connect on the relationship after the marketing has taken place to get the interest, which is the lead. But the salesperson is the one that brings that home, and they hopefully are ethical, right? But the branding was where everything started. And that to me was like a mixture of my degrees of business marketing and theater. And it was like putting the two together. And I was like, holy shit, I feel like I'm home in branding. And at CSU, I never had a course on branding. I didn't really know what it was. And they still don't have a program on branding. But I did recently talk to the marketing director of the department. And he said, yeah, we're looking to build a course on branding here. I'm like, finally, you should. Because I just feel like when you're studying marketing, you might actually be more interested in branding, but you don't know the difference. So anyway, all this to say, at my time at CertaPro, I shifted from marketing to branding, and it inspired me. I had some mentorship. I learned from amazing people. My old boss, Ed Waller, who I just talked to recently again, who's doing awesome. He was like a boss and a mentor built into one, and he is very much brand. I just felt like that was my place. And so that's actually kind of the happy accident of how in 2014, when I left the corporate world and worked for myself, I said, well, I'm pretty great at branding things and understanding branding. So I'm just going to be a brand consultant and we'll see what happens. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I got into the whole branding world, and turned out is actually really for me. And I'm built for branding because, long story short, it's not short, long story
Too
longer.
late. Yeah.
Long story longer. My whole childhood and the way I was raised in my family was inauthentic. And I actually don't feel like I've truly known who Anne is until the age of 36, 37, and I'm 41 now. So the
Oh,
last
yeah.
4 or 5 years of my life have been fucking profound. Like the best years of my life after the work. The work was hard, right? Lots of therapy, lots
Of
of books,
course.
lots of
Yes.
coaching, lots of, meditating, figuring out how to connect with the inner, divine and like my intuition, all the things. But now I actually consider my 40th birthday being reborn. And my 41st birthday this year, I put a 1 on the cake. My kids didn't even know they did it. They put a 1 on the cake. My husband and I just looked at each other and kind of smiled. It was my first birthday of truly being
Yeah.
Anne. And
Yeah.
so in that, I feel like branding and why and curious and wanting to help others, you too. I mean, we've worked together in both my companies. You help when you realize you've done it yourself. You help other people ask those why questions and get really
Yeah.
curious about things that you wouldn't normally dig into to identify who you truly are as a business or as a person, because that gives me light. Because when I did that for myself, when I see other people doing that, I just like that's what fulfills me.
Yeah.
So
I,
I didn't
I
even know
want to,
like 2014 was going to be the start of this business that, 14 or 11 years later was going to be this like profound thing of continuing the why. And I didn't even know I
right.
was so curious about the why back then.
Right. What's funny is, after all that great story, I want to go back to like one word that you used only like 2 or 3 times, manipulation. Because you had said, oh, you would become an exceptional salesperson, and that was scary. It was scary because you realized you had this power to manipulate. Is that what I
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah. I think it was through writing copy, it was through developing programs, and it was the way I could talk to someone about something
Yeah.
and persuade them. I'm a very persuasive person. I even persuade myself on shit, which I have to be careful.
Sure. Yeah.
And and I think when I realized I've been given the gift of communication, and I think I've always had to over communicate because I am the child of that, that literally
Yeah.
was parentified young and was over communicating, and at 12 was therapizing all of my parents' friends because they could talk to me. And a lot of my childhood was taken away. I think at around 8 I feel like my childhood stopped. And so I've always been really mature. And I always thought that was a compliment. And now I'm like, fuck you. Like, we're all the adults that were supposed to keep me
Not
safe.
when you're 8. Yeah, when you're 8, you want to be 8. You don't want to be an
Exactly.
adult.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that it was scary for me to learn, oh shit, in college, in dating, in my relationships, I could be a player if I wanted to be a player. I could manipulate someone if I wanted to. I could hurt someone if I wanted to. It was really, I had to go through it. I had to get through a lot of really toxic things. I actually had some really beautiful situations later in my 30s when some different men from my high school and college days had somehow reconnected with me as a client or a friend
Oh,
and
wow.
shared stories with me about how harmful I was to them back in high school and college, or
Yeah.
whatever that was, that I used my looks or my, I was 5'10" since I was 13. So I've always been viewed as an adult.
Yeah.
And it was really harmful. And I think when you're given a lot of attention and people confide in you and you're always an approachable person, which I always have been, I didn't always use it well. And so I think that played in with the marketing and the sales and the jobs, and being a 5'10" blonde since you're 13, like you get away with a lot of shit that you shouldn't. And so
Yeah.
I even said, this is really cool because I think my path, God's been helping me kind of fulfill this now. But as a girl, I said, I used to want to be an actress. Okay. That was like why I did all the theater. I wanted to go to Hollywood and be an actress.
Sure. Yeah.
And I said, but that changed in my teens. And I said, I don't want to ever be famous for the way I look. I want to be famous for
Sure.
my brain and my mind.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now it's really cool because I'm building out my thought leadership platform for my brain and my thoughts and my journey. And if I prefer it, maybe my looks aren't a part of that. It wouldn't be a bad thing. So that's been really cool for me of where I am now. I'm like, oh, I can actually speak and have more to say than just taking
Yeah.
a photo.
Right. Did you know I'm a big, huge Marilyn Monroe fan?
No, I
Yeah.
never knew
Yeah,
that.
there's a reason for bringing this up. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, in part, some of the makeup stuff that I do is very Marilyn Monroe. Some of the way once I started
That.
transition, the way I changed to my smile and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Anyway, she was the same. She became
She was
this,
the same.
blonde bombshell who was like she was like, all
She
I
was
want to do
so
is have.
smart. She was so
Yes.
smart, though. And I
Right.
love her as well. Nobody knew how smart she was, just an intellect.
Because nobody cared. Nobody
Nobody
cared.
cared.
There's a line in another great film, Spice World, of course, about the Spice Girls. But George Wendt, I think it is, has a line where he says, Marilyn Monroe, nobody cared if she, could she act? Who cared? People only cared if she was in focus. That
Yeah.
was his line. And it's like, I remember seeing that because I actually am also a big Spice Girls fan.
Oh, I
For a
love
while.
Spice
Yeah,
Girls. Which one was
right.
yours? What was your fave? You have to have one. Who?
You go first. You go first.
Sporty Spice.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I was a tomboy growing up. I loved being
Okay.
a tomboy.
Okay. Okay. Ginger is mine.
Ginger,
So
of
if I were
course.
to, yeah.
She is so
Oh,
sassy.
Well, right. So if I were to rank them, I would go.
I liked Baby because I felt I looked a lot like her with like the long blonde hair and the blue eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I were to rank them, so I have Ginger, then Baby, then Scary, then Sporty, and then Posh. Posh is always at the bottom. Sorry, Posh, but you were
Posh was
you were like an also ran. Yeah. It was,
Yeah, she was just kind of there. Yeah. Yeah.
But Marilyn, yeah, same thing. She struggled. She's like, all I want to do is have long conversations with Arthur Miller, whom she married, of course.
Right.
So, anyway, so yeah, it's a great story. I do. After all of that, we have a world now. Maybe you've noticed. Look around us here. Our whole world is all about manipulation. It's not about authenticity. It's about manipulating through social norms, right? So I know you've mentioned now 4 years that you've been doing basically a reclamation of Anne. First of all, would you call that reclamation or discovery? First of all,
Discovery. Yeah.
discovery.
I don't actually think I ever was given permission by both the people around me. I don't want to play the victim card and myself.
No, sure.
With the kind of upbringing I had to know who Anne truly was. I think she was there younger, but I think she was so afraid would be a good word, to really live out who she was back then. So she knew she was there. My inner child, I've had to spend a lot of time with my inner child, and it was hard. And I still find it hard, but there's a lot of things I do that I actually immediately am taken back to this meditation I went to when I was connecting with my inner child to heal. And she's this little girl. I don't have an age, but I remember I see me vividly in my room. I had these huge glasses. I was blind as a bat. I had LASIK when I was 23.
Yeah.
I had these huge glasses and freckles and, the big old smile. And like I've always had the smile. I think you can tell a lot by people from their smile, but I always was happy to be there, even though I was broken and hurt. But I'm in my room and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm on the floor. I'm either coloring or doing homework or drawing or something. I used to draw all these fantastic gowns. Like I wanted to be a fashion designer.
Oh, wow.
So I draw like all these stick women with these gowns, just these amazing things. And I'm in my room and she's just there. And that was my safe place. That's where I went all the time. I danced. That's where I put my headphones on and danced like crazy. I still do that in my basement. Call that basement dancing. And dance was always my expression, and music and coloring. And I go back and I visit her a lot. And I actually just put my arms around her as her mom. And I mother my children as the mom that I wanted and needed. And so I'll go back in my room and I put my arms around little Annie. And I just am there with her and I just let her be. That's the thing. I'm not poking at her for anything. She doesn't have to talk to me. She just can be however she is in whatever emotional state. And I just sit with her and make her feel safe. And in doing that exercise, that's helped me a lot. Like sit in the shit now. I talk about that a lot when I guest lecture. Like you got to sit in the shit. You know, when you're in the shit, you sit there. And if you had an adult who you know and love and trust who sits in that shit with you, that's all a child ever needs, you know? And I'll go sit with her. And there's like all this fighting outside her door, and there's, you know, whatever, all the shit. And she's just in her room. She's like, I'm good because that's not my issue. I'm here. And I spent a lifetime taking on everybody else's shit that wasn't mine and was people pleaser beyond, right? Because that's how I stayed safe. I dissociated and I was a people pleaser. And that's how little Annie survived. So at this point, I would say that as of around 37, I discovered myself by allowing my inner child to exist as she was. And then going back to revisit that and going, oh, holy shit, we're pretty incredible. Like, let's do us. Let's just do this.
But exist as, first of all, I want to say that's a great line. I don't know the way I want to put that. You allowed her to exist as she was. Because it's not what our world wants us to do. Our world wants us to be what they want us to be.
Right.
And some of this, I, you know, in our previous conversations, some of this I know came from parents who were, you know, both abusive and you had mentioned narcissistic, which was largely the same thing. But also relationship with religion. You know, obviously Western modes of Christianity are, they certainly don't want you to be who you are if who you are is not, you know, whatever. I'm not even sure, because it's kind of funny, right? Because most Christians, you look at them and they go, well, this is the kind of person I am. And you go, I'm looking at you from outside and I'm telling you, that's not who you are.
Exactly.
I don't really have a question that I'm going toward here. I think it was just exist as she was. That's not what you get in today's society. It's not at all. And I mean, all of this, you know, ultimately plays into the idea of authenticity and why branding, I think, became more of a, you know, the drive for you, the direction to go. But I think I just, you know, tell me more about how all of this ended up bubbling up. I mean, 37 years old. What happened? What was the snapping point and what was the result?
The moment, right? The pinnacle moment. This is a beautiful moment. This is the first line. This is the first line of my book. Right now I have a book that's almost done called Forward. I don't know if that name is going to stick, but it's Forward. So the first line of my book is this, and then this is really the pinnacle moment to everything. In COVID, so 2020, I had a 10-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old at home.
Oof.
I was breastfeeding. I then had a toddler who was still 2, napping, all the things. And then I had a 4-year-old who was starting preschool virtually. Okay.
Oh,
now she had already been exposed to preschool at age 3, like real and in person and the real deal. So taking that away from a 4-year-old and going to a computer story time twice a week. This is what I have to say to virtual preschool. And then I'm trying to manage a 2-year-old's nap schedule and also nurse 10-month-old and go to her nap schedule. I don't think, here's the thing. Okay. I think, so this is a story for another day, but I'm going to lightly touch on this. I got married at 27, had an IUD, had birth control, wasn't interested in kids. I was at the pinnacle of my career. I was traveling. This was the sort of pro job. I was traveling 50 to 75% of the year. Amazing job. 4 years. So much amazing experience there. I loved that job. I was not interested in becoming a mom anytime soon, but we knew we wanted to have kids. We had a false blood test when I was 28, a year and a half into being married, because of the IUD, yet they didn't know enough back then to say that the IUD caused this, that they said I was infertile, basically, that said my chances of having my own pregnancy ever were like 7%.
Wow.
And that my eggs weren't healthy, all this. And that my OB said, if you want to have any chance of having your own children, we pull out the IUD tomorrow and start. And we were like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
So tell that to a young married couple who's 28 and 26, a year and a half into being married. I mean, just awful, right? So that's kind of how our journey into starting a family started. So we did it. We had a crisis. My husband was incredible, supported me through the whole thing emotionally. And then we went to town. For 2 years, we tried to have a baby with that news. And of course, we're not going to succeed because we started with that news. So we were like already fucked, right? So mentally, the stress was so profound. And we weren't successful. So we went to fertility testing. We went to some hormone experiments to see if we could get it. Well, the fertility testing after a year and a half of being el natural with no birth control was night and day. We were so fertile. They were like, there is nothing wrong with you whatsoever. I don't even know why your doctor would have done that blood test with an IUD inside of you. And I was like, what? So
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was waiting. Okay, the cause was
So they were like, oh, we have this new blood test that can find out how many eggs you have and how. Well, they're not supposed to do that with an IUD in.
Okay.
But they didn't know that at the time. They're like, no, it shouldn't affect it at all. And I'm like, you fucked up my mental health for like 2 years, dude.
Yeah. Right.
What? So anyway.
Well done.
That's how we got into it. So we had so we were desperate to have a family out of odds that were not natural and nor even scientific at that point, none of our own favor. But it was a beautiful, perfect start to everything that should have happened as it should have been, right? Anyway, we had a miscarriage, then we had our oldest, then we had our son, then we had a miscarriage, and then we had our daughter. So I had 5 pregnancies.
Wow.
All within like 8 years after trying, having some hormones. So the journey for me to become a mom, when I didn't even really want it at the time, I was told I had to. So all of the things didn't play out as I had planned. But now I'm realizing we're perfectly imperfect in God's plan, which is great. And so I think those 8 years or so, and then I breastfed all of our kids, thankfully, and I nursed straight through. I actually didn't need to stop nursing to have a cycle again. So I was just fertile myrtle going through, and I nursed through every other pregnancy. So I lactated for 5 years straight. Into all of
my gosh.
Yes, Amy. Yeah. Like me. So I think what happened.
So you lactated while you were pregnant?
Yeah.
So estrogen dominant bodies are pretty amazing.
There's
a book I'm going to send to you that has a whole chapter about that. But
guess what I've had to work on the last several years is estrogen dominance and balance. And I've done it. I've balanced my estrogen. So this is a big deal at 41. But I will say this, it was like a decade of me not being in my own body, right? And so I think I lost the sense of what was there of Anne, which, as we've mentioned, was already not truly her authentically since she was a girl.
Yeah.
So then you're going into this period of COVID, which is wreaking havoc on everybody's mental health. And I think I got to a place of years and years and years of unresolved postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and then postpartum. I was probably depressed before all of that happened and didn't even know it. And so I became so depressed, but secretly. I mean, I've always been this kind of bubbly person. No one would have known anything, including my husband. So there was a night in 2020 when I sat down on the couch, and I remember saying this with such clarity. And I said, I don't think I need to exist anymore. And he said,
sure.
What? How far into that thought are we? Have you thought about killing yourself? If so, how? Have you thought about killing the kids? If so, how? I mean, he's a very great communicator, and that's how we are, right? And I was blessed with an amazing man who literally saved my life. And I said, I don't think I'm quite at the point. This was all matter of fact. I was like, yeah, I don't need to be here. I'm done. Like, I often had thoughts of just driving my car off a cliff. I didn't want to hurt the kids. So thank God I wasn't at that place. But I was very much like, I am totally good if I'm dead. Like, I actually would prefer it. And that's where I was mentally. And when I said that and had that realization, there was no emotion behind it. It was just so matter of fact. Trent was like,
I hear
nope,
you.
not doing that today. So we had a huge conversation and I was just sobbing. I was sobbing to the point that you can't even catch your breath to catch your breath. Do you know? Like you're like choking on crying and just stuff coming up from the pit of despair in your gut that has been shoved down for years. And he even asked, he was like, I want to hug you, but he knows me better that I need a lot of space when I go through that. So he said, can I hug you? And I said, no. I think I said, stay the fuck away or stay on that couch. He's like, yep, got it. Like we just kept fleshing out. And I said that night, I said, I feel like an orphan. I feel like I'm the only one in my birth family who got out and survived. And I'm here. And I'm not like any of them, my older sister, my mom, or my dad. I am an orphan. And you and I are building the family I've always wanted. And I don't feel equipped to lead this. I don't even know who the fuck I am. It was really beautiful. And so literally the next day, he looked into a lot of resources for therapists. He said, I need to see your list of therapists you're looking at, like held me accountable.
Right.
And soon after that, very soon after that, he and I talked often. And then I started therapy. And that wasn't even the best therapist, right? That was one of a few, but it was the start of who I needed to begin going back to my childhood and starting the journey of healing my inner child and my childhood trauma that I didn't even realize was like profoundly shaped. And what's really cool about parenthood, we don't realize that becoming a mom or a dad is never about the child. It's always about cracking open our own journey of healing that actually restarts, you know?
Yes. Right. Yes. It's so funny because, well, not funny, but I will tell you, first of all, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because I never knew any of this. So it's a completely new dimension on what I know about you, and was largely the same experience I had at 42. So
okay. Wow.
Had a major breakdown 2012, summer of 2012, and it came, after our kid was a year old. And it was a similar thing. It was a breaking point, and it was like, I better change something because I'm not really here.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a further story to that where I really did push a lot more down, that I had to have another breaking point at 52, which is why we're talking now. We're not going to go to that, but it is so fascinating. This is a facet of you that never, I never knew any of this. And it's so familiar. The stupid thing is that I think it's really familiar to a lot of people.
Right.
We don't talk about that, right? We don't. We're all Facebook. What is it? There's a word for it. Facebook perfect. I'm trying to remember what that.
Yeah. That's why actually I've leaned into, in COVID, actually, I leaned into my social media network a lot.
Yeah.
And realized it is what I create it to be. So I got really particular of accounts that I was going to follow and not. And even if, and I stopped people pleasing with it. I said, even if you follow me, if I'm not getting what I need from your content, I'll unfollow, and it's okay. Because I'm building kind of the shell of social media that I needed to lean on, because I love social media. I can see the toxicity with it, but the second I started sharing my journey in this, right? And I share a lot of this on my reels. That's why my account has been private, because it was a lot of my healing. And
I see.
I only wanted people in who I wanted them to see the kids and see me growing up as a mom and seeing me kind of go through all this. But I shared family drama. I am now estranged from my mom, very happily. My dad, I was estranged from for 8 years before he passed away. He passed away in 2020 from complications after getting COVID. And was a COVID naysayer and all of the things, and then got COVID, was hospitalized, and then had a bunch of issues after it, and it took his life. And so I've lived a lot of life through COVID of family separation, gaslighting. A lot of the political climate has separated a lot of us in great ways. I didn't know we needed it. And God was, I think, trying to pull me out further, using all of those things to say, look, these are not healthy people for the future that I have for you and what I've made you to do, Anne, and what I'm calling you to go do now, forward, right? The book forward. You can't have these things in your life that are tying you down. So I'm estranged from my older sister. I'm estranged from my mom, and I was estranged from my dad before he passed. And so I truly am an orphan. And I am building the family that I want and that I needed with my husband and our 3 kids. And it is beautiful. And they are the smartest, most emotionally mature children at 6, 8, and 10 I've ever known. And I feel very kindred with them, that I was probably very high EQ, high intuitive, high intellect, young, because of my parents. So I'm very grateful for them. I'm grateful for all the experiences I had, even all of the trauma and the abuse and the gaslighting, because it's beautiful, because it's made me who I am now to do my purpose. And at 41, I have so much fucking life to live. And there's like so much ahead of me that I'm like, oh, that was like a blip. Yeah, it was like my whole childhood, but that was a blip in what I'm going to make this life to become.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you have, speaking of your family, because you have now told me, your family is very body positive, is very sex positive, very open, very emotional. Why is that better than, well, hang on. Because there are a lot of Christian parents.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn this into a bigger question. Okay. Because there are a lot of Christian parents, especially when you talk about Christian parents of queer children, who go, well, I'm doing this for their good.
Right.
Right. They're going to be better people by me, beating their identity out of them. Apparently, I'm a little more bitter about this than I thought, but
you had a different experience, Amy, which is accepted, and I see and hear you. So keep going.
Oh, but there's, every week I'm looking at shit that, anyway, why is what you do better? There's supposedly, these are supposedly religious and moral, ethical people. Yeah. And yet you are doing something opposite. Why is that better?
Yeah. I'm going to preface this and say it's better for us because it's not better for other people. And there are many reasons I'm sure this won't work for other people, and that's fine. That I'm happy to be an open book about it if people are curious about it, because it is so different. It's against the norm. Mm-hmm. I think with my experience and my childhood of being told what to do, when to do it with my body, having the open parents with open conversations about sex and talking about it, but yet all of those open conversations came with judgment. They were framed in what you should do and who you should be, or else there's shame in that. Right. So of course they were open. My mom was very open, and I'm grateful for that. But also in that openness, you still got all of her judgment and opinions and shame. And should you not agree with her, it was not people pleasing. And then because she was more narcissistic in nature, that was a problem, right? If you are not a child who people pleases a narcissistic parent, there is a lot of bad news for you. It's bad news bears.
Right, okay. Right.
So I learned that as a child, I was going to kind of be who I knew I wanted to be outside of the home. Not rebellious, because my sister was rebellious and she got the shit beaten out of her emotionally, mentally, and physically. So I saw that. I was a smart younger child. I said, no, thank you. I'd like to keep the door on my room. I would like to have freedom and not be grounded. I'd like to do all these. I'd like to not get pushed or hit because I'm too difficult. So whatever, I'll just chill over here in my room. So all that to say, I think the way I was raised, my experiences with it were very controlled. And then modeled by inauthentic ways, right? This isn't even from the perfect model of behavior that you're asking of me. So, for our kids, I go off of experiences, and this works for us because of who I am now, because of my healing journey. So I can share with my daughter and my son, this is the information that I know because I've lived it, right? This is what I know from experience. It's just like how you're supposed to do peer-to-peer CEO groups at work. This is often how I've joined all those groups. It's don't ever give your opinion. You only get to share if you have an experience that relates to what we're talking about. If you don't have an experience, shut the fuck up. That's how they should be, right? That's how I parent. So if I have an experience to pull from, I'll share it. And then you make your own judgment because you're a smart cookie. If I don't have an experience and it's just an opinion or a judgment, which I still do because I'm not perfect, I refrain. Or that's where Trent and I try to like catch each other. So it works so well for us being open and body positive and sex positive with our family because I can share my experiences of the other side of that wasn't, and that it didn't work for me now as a healed adult. And then I'll say the reasons why, all with age appropriate, because I don't want to parentify our children as well. You know, I was very parentified, and it's hard. And so I want to preserve their childhood as long as I can. But when they're asking questions about something and I have an experience, I will use age appropriate words and filter. And I could still be wrong, but I share with them, like, this is how I experienced it, and this is what worked for me, and this is what didn't. And what do you think about that? And I always ask questions, what do you think about that? Or would you do that? Or do you think that that's right or wrong in your book? You know, and I ask them to think about it because I want them to be problem solvers. I don't want them to just do what they're told. In fact, I challenge them. They'll come home and they'll say, well, Miss So-and-so said we should do this and we should do it this way. And I said, and what do you think? And they go, oh, I don't know. I never even thought about that. I said, I want you to think about that. I want you to challenge your teachers. I said, I actually don't agree with Miss So-and-so. I don't think you should be friends with everybody because we're not built to be friends with everybody. And that's a people pleaser. You pick your friends and you choose with your intuition. That's so beautiful. Who's going to be your friend and who's not. You don't have to be friends with everyone. You do have to be kind and respect everyone. There's a difference. So I said, maybe she was meaning that in your little first grade class. Or maybe she was trying to say you should be friends with everyone, which I don't agree. And then I challenge them, what's the difference between friendship and kindness? And they know.
Yeah.
They have answers because kids are so smart. So yeah, I don't know. It works for us because of the nature of our children. They are all assertive. They are all loud. They are all exciting. They all have huge personalities. We did not get one shy, timid, meek kid. We have 3 beautiful children and they are a lot, which means we can't take them a lot of places. And we know that they're not built for a lot of quiet manners, be in your seat. And that's okay. But they also live the shit out of life, just like their mom and dad are doing. And that works for us. We have the open conversations because they are curious. If we weren't open, they're so curious. They're going to find out about it one way or another. They already know how to search the internet for everything. So we've already gotten in trouble at school for that. And I had to defend my kid. She literally was using her school computer last year, unknowingly, so innocent, looking up naked bodies. And she typed in like naked girl, naked woman, naked bodies. And I thought the firewall was better, but I was pissed. It produced an upskirt shot. Shot for her. And I looked at her history and because the school called us in for this meeting, I had no idea. And then they were like trying to put it on her and us that she was a bad kid. And I go, oh, no. Your firewall failed. And now I'm pissed because you produced a pornographic image to her that we didn't okay. And she actually, let's ask her intention. What's her intention in searching for that? And she said, I'm really curious to see what my body looks like when I get older and when I grow up and when I get boobs.
Sure. Of course.
A fantastic question. And I said, we said this, the school computer is not an appropriate place to do that research, especially on your own. And now we know it's safe and out in the open. This is beautiful. I said, we have a home computer. Dad and I would love to search up images with you that we feel are appropriate for you to see for what you're intending to find out. Right. So yeah, she's not looking at porn at school. I'm like, no, you don't get to do that. We're going to actually resolve this as fucking adults and humans because we're better than that. So then we did. And then they were all like blown away at all of it. And of course there was no punishment, but there was a lesson. It's inappropriate to do any of that research in class, and it's inappropriate to do any of that on a school device. However, curiosity is beautiful, and it's not inappropriate, and let's do that at home with us. And that's really aided our open discussion, and she saw us defend her at school, which kids really need to see their
Oh
parents.
my gosh, yes. Yes. I appreciate your diplomacy. You have consistently said, well, what works for us, works for us, works for us. I believe there is so much, I'm just going to call it religious trauma. Really, probably we should call it Christian trauma or Muslim trauma.
Yeah.
But there is so much religious trauma out there. I don't think anybody who has experienced this religious trauma would disagree that allowing a child to think is a good thing. I don't think anybody would disagree with that idea.
Yeah.
I certainly don't. All I wanted to say on that, I guess, was, you said that your parents would give you judgments, not experience. They gave you judgments and didn't care whether you learned to judge or not. And what I think is fascinating today, we see parents who go, well, I just need to teach my kid everything that's true. But they're talking about what's true to them. They want to teach them judgments. They don't want to teach them how to think. They don't want to teach them how to experience. They don't want to teach them basically all the skills that the children are going to need as soon as they get out of their parents' house.
Right.
So all I'm going to do, I'm going to challenge you. I appreciate your diplomacy. This works for our family, but I'm going to tell you, if you allow a child to think, if you allow a child to be the person they are, I think that works for everybody. I don't think there's I don't think you can say, well, it's good for us, even if it's not good for somebody else. No, every child needs to learn to be who they are.
Yeah. They need to learn
Anyway.
discernment as well. I said, discernment is what you think about information that comes into your head. And
right.
You're knowing whether you believe that to be true or not for you, and why. And I said, because your intuition in your belly is your compass, and you're going to know good information and bad information for you, but not because mom and dad said it's good or it's bad.
Right.
And I said, there was a professor in college that I didn't agree with often, and I challenged him because I knew I could, and he didn't like it. And I said, I want you to start learning that discernment now, because whether I tell you something's right or wrong, I want you to think about why. And if you don't think that's the case, let's have a conversation, because I'm very open to debating it. And I want you guys to be really good debaters and also negotiators. And so Trent will often say, you know what? That's a good negotiation. I'm going to hear you on that. Let's sit down and talk. Like, okay, bedtime is not in 5 minutes. Well, why? We'll have a negotiation. That was a great negotiation. Yeah, 10 minutes. I'll give you 5 more. Because we celebrate when they're actually using their head to have a very good discussion of why, or using discernment of, I don't agree with that, and here's why. And that's fantastic. And we celebrate that. And this is funny. Out the door this morning, so Trent's gone. He went on this 6-day road trip up to Montana. He's in Glacier National Park having the time of his life. And I encouraged him, it's like a Father's Day gift, to go on this alone trip that wasn't for work, and just go be with himself. This is the first time he's ever done that. I said, traveling by yourself is profound. Just go, take the time. So he's having the time of his life. He called me this morning. He FaceTimes me when he's on the top of mountains, because that's the only place to get reception. So he'll hike all these corners and and then he'll FaceTime me from the top. He's like, look where I am. So he's at the top of this gorgeous mountain. I saw this glacier. It was beautiful. Also to show that he's safe and didn't get eaten by a bear.
Sure. Yeah, important. Yes.
So he did that. And so he's been gone. And our son, Clive, is so connected to Trent. Beyond, they have a beautiful emotional relationship as men. It's really cool. And so Clive really gets it when Trent leaves. It's bad. This morning was awful. Tried to break the fridge. The boy's temper is insane, and he's strong. He's a really big kid. And so he'll start trying to break and he's hurting. And I see through that, and I see how much he's hurting. And he's stomping around. He's like, I'm not going to school, and just going off. And I allow all of it, but you can't break the house, right? So there's boundaries, there's rules, and there's, I see you in your pain. And I try to let him take a moment. And then I say, do you need a hug? I see how hurt you are. And makes him pissed. But I keep approaching that. I say, this is all allowed. You can be angry. You have to go to school. You can be sad and you have to go to school. And I just keep standing my ground. And I don't address the emotion because it's allowed. He did something this morning that most adults don't even know how to do, that I know. And he, as an 8-year-old, was screaming for like 30 minutes, right? Crying and screaming. And I want dad. I want dad's pancakes. I want dad to come home today. All the things. I'm not going to school. And then I stood my ground, but also with love. And then all of a sudden I turn around and it's 5 minutes till we have to leave. And he's sitting on the couch with his backpack on, his shoes and socks on. He moved through life. He got forward, right?
Yeah.
He was having these massive emotions, and he's 8, and he still moved through life to do what he needed to do because I allowed it. And then I went over and sat with him, and he just collapsed in my arms and he's sobbing. And I put my hand on his heart. And I said, Clive, I'm celebrating you because that was beautiful. And you just let me witness this amazing thing that you did. And I'm so proud of you. And I said, you felt these huge things and you continued to move through the tasks of life to move forward.
Right.
And I said, you didn't get stuck in your room. You didn't stay under your covers naked. Like, you did it. And so we celebrated it. And then we have this little task chore chart that they get check marks for.
Oh, sure.
And I said, we're going to add emotions as a line item because I'm going to check mark when I see you emotionally regulating and getting through your day, because that is huge. And then I let him go pick a prize from the prize box because he's like, do I get a
nice.
prize? I'm like,
Yeah.
heck yeah, dude. That was so cool. So he like picks this squishy, and I said, let that be your reminder that you can do hard things. And that was really hard. And I'm so proud of you. And then his older sister, of course, Emma, was like, Clive, great job, buddy. That was so cool. And I was like, oh my God, I did. Like, wanting to just sob.
What a great fucking parent I am. Oh my God.
I was just like, this is the example of what Dr. Becky's doing with Good Inside. And like all these therapists are trying to get us in parenthood to like move forward into of not control and you can't and stop, but like, yes, like you are beautiful and let's move forward and sit in shit and then keep going. And that was that. It was just so cool. And then I talked to, we talked to Trent. We sent him a video actually, cause he didn't have reception. And I said, let's tell dad how much we're missing him today. Cause he needs to know when he gets reception. And Clive on the video goes, Dad, I had a huge outburst and I regulated. And that's the first time I've heard him use the word regulated at 8. And he goes, I regulated and I got a prize. And I was like, yay. It made my morning, you know? I was like, this is what it's fucking about. It's not about the bullshit and the niceties. This right here is parenthood. It was so beautiful.
Right. I want to come with me on a little trip here because I want to project forward 20 years, maybe 25 years. Mm-hmm. Clive's now, 28, early 30s, let's say, is a congressperson.
Yeah. Oh, I hope
has the ability to do those same kind of things. So now instead of Congress like getting together and going, you're wrong, and then nothing gets done.
Yeah.
Maybe your son will be one of the ones who actually moves this country forward. So
amen, Amy. Yeah.
Just think about that.
I mean, I think this too. And a lot of people are like, heal the boys of our country. And I said, no, it's heal the boys and the girls of this country.
Heal everybody. Yeah.
When we have, this is a whole other conversation you and I would love to get into, but you talk about toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. Yeah. There are both. And when you learn to play nice in all of them, right? That it's not male or female, binary, non-binary, doesn't matter. We all have masculine and feminine energy.
Right.
We all have to learn how to balance both of those. And when you don't let the toxic behaviors become the norm of the women and the men, and the non-binary and the transgender community. I mean, we could go through everybody, the queer community.
Right.
When you have, I don't care what your identification is, when you are a human being on this earth and you are taught emotional regulation and you are taught to live in an open mindset and allow everyone else to think and feel for themselves, and then have the intellectual conversation, regardless of how you're feeling, to move forward logically and with kindness and to relate to other people while still having those feelings. They can still exist, right? And you can move forward on really interesting and hard topics.
Yeah.
That is when we're going to heal. And if I can have any part in that with raising 3 children that I hope one day are leaders, and our 10-year-old often says, I'm just going to be president and do this. I'm like, girl, I
Good.
hope you are.
Yeah,
Please be our
please.
president. I'll vote for
Right.
you. I will go raise all the billions of dollars to make you our president. Please, let's do this. If we all, as parents, raise children who know how to do this stuff, that is when we will all heal, when we have healthy leadership, regardless
Yeah.
of at work or politically, religiously, right? Whatever, wherever you are leading a group of people. And that is my goal. It's through my work, it's through my thought leadership platform and the brand of Anne that I'm soon to be embarking on.
Yeah.
And it's being a parent and raising the next generation that just, it's emotionally regulated people. That's it. It's literally that. It's realizing that our own journeys are our own, and we can all come to the table with regulated emotions, and then actually start having an intellectual conversation to move things forward. That's my goal.
Yeah. I'm just going to give you a heart because it was just that. Thank you. I mean, what else do we, how else do we move forward in the world? We really don't. So, I mean, I think what we're looking at is exactly what you're saying, a lot of toxic behavior, regardless of what side, however you want to gender that behavior.
You know what I see, Amy, in politicians? I see a lot of really hurt and ignored young girls and boys who are having temper
Yeah.
tantrums in an adult way. And that's what we are witnessing time and time again in companies. I work with a lot of CEOs
Yeah.
and I see a lot of toxic leadership that heals a lot through brand therapy. But also, I see a lot of leaders in schools, in churches, and in politics who are little girls and little boys who are never taught emotional regulation, and they weren't allowed to be seen or heard
The,
for who they were.
I think that's the thing is I think that's rewarded now. To emotional dysregulation. I think we're starting to reward that,
Right?
particularly in politics. But I think it's a bigger, even more than just them being hurt. They've also been rewarded. And I don't even want to say, oh well, it's the millennials, right? All the snowflakes. What are the conservative buzzwords? It's not the snowflakes. It's not the Gen Z things. We have a society that rewards it when you lose your shit and people go, oh, that's powerful. Oh, they're living their truth. No, you're being a little bitch.
Yeah.
Is what it is. So anyway, beautiful.
I think the reward though isn't all bad, because I think the reward is, as humans, we like to see someone lose their shit because it's authentic and it's raw and it's what we wish we could do if we're still caged and trapped, right? And so I
it's
think
not
we're rewarding,
authenticity necessarily.
yeah, but I think it's rewarding the expression of the feeling of having
Okay.
fit or being a bitch or the
Yes.
tantrum. And
Yes.
so the reward is because as humans we say yes, like speak your truth and celebrate it, but it's not coming from an emotionally regulated and mature place. And so instead of
Yes.
rewarding maybe some release in a healthy way of emotions, we're seeing it in an unhealthy way, which is
Right.
immaturity. It's a low EQ. But as humans, we're still celebrating that because we want more of that. And so if we had leadership that was more emotionally elevated, right? Higher EQ,
Yeah.
and in a healthy way, not only would we celebrate the release and the expression of that, but then it would actually move the needle forward versus getting it stuck or going backwards,
Yeah.
which is where I think
Yes.
we kind of are.
Yeah. Agreed 100%. There you go. I think we've solved all the world's problems.
We did it, Amy, in one
Yeah.
podcast. Look at us.
Thanks for doing. How many times have we done this now?
So I feel like every conversation that you and I have had could have been
Solves
a podcast.
well, yes,
Those
but
problems. And we've been talking for 2 years. Like, this is
Yeah.
all our brand therapy stuff. We did
Yeah.
all of this, right? We just had video call after video call. And our video
Yeah.
calls were often very long. I mean, we'd always blow past time and be like, to heck with our workday. This is work.
Anybody who knows me, knows that that those conversations never end.
Nor should they, because they're what matters. This is what matters, right?
I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the time. We're running low on time. I know that there are going to be people who listen to this and go, you know what, I got to work with this person. I have some websites here, social media and everything. Do you want to talk about, or do you want to give like social media? Let me just say this. How do we find you on the internet? And maybe leave it at that. You tell me what you want to share.
Great. So there are 2 websites for my companies if you'd like to work with us and me. And so the first one is called Fix and Form. So it's just fixandform.com. And that is where you can access me as a brand therapist. And I work in the strategic branding space of figuring out your identity of your business, a brand refresh, or creating a new brand. And then we also do full branding, logos, websites, graphic design, and then we do all of the content strategy with marketing plans if you would like to move into that space. Then we also have another company called 10 to Launch. It's the number 10, TO, launch.com. That's a new company where we're incorporating AI and automations to fully brand businesses, and Amy was one of them, in 10 days. So it's a 10-day sprint. Amy has a lot to say about that. We loved working with you. We invite you to the table, join the team, and in 10 days, we launch a fully loaded brand package for you with humans and AI. And then that's business. And then in terms of just thought leadership speaking, if you are a founder of something, I have a podcast with my co-host, Matt, called Only Founders. And it's the explicit, unscripted, raw look at what founders should be talking about in public that isn't on the golf course or behind closed doors. And that's a lot of fun. So it's out now. We're on episode 14 today. Just got released.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, cool.
Yep. And then let's see. On social media, you can find me at Fix and Form, 10 to Launch, Anne Gillaspie, just my name. You can search for me on LinkedIn. I'm kind of all over. So if you just want to look up my name, you can find a lot of the assets there.
Cool. All right. Well, help me out and put the social media accounts you want to share, and I'll stick them all in the show notes so that people can get directly to you. So you've got the little doc here. Stick in what you want to put in, and
are you saying the document that you shared with me?
Yeah.
With the show notes? Perfect.
Yes.
I'll make sure everything is on there that I want.
Absolutely. And if they're like, 60 of them, that's fine. I have a lot of characters that I can use in show notes.
Perfect.
So both for podcasts and videos. So
perfect. And soon, the personal brand of Anne will be created, and soon it will be my name. AnneGillaspie.com will be a thing. So
good. Okay.
And I can say that. All
right. No, that's awesome. Never mind. I won't ask you that right here in the podcast, but so we've known each other a long time. Obviously I can provide information both about Fix and Form and 10 to Launch. I just want to say these are all stories that I've never heard. And I wanted to express my gratitude, really deep gratitude for being the kind of person willing to share all of this, because we just don't hear these stories. So thank you so much for all of this.
Thank you for asking me the questions, right? It's being curious about the why that leads you to these deeper conversations. If more people were curious about the why, we would really be having profound conversations.
Right. Very true. Very true. So let me go ahead. I'll go ahead and do my little closing.
Perfect.
All right. So I am Amethysta Herrick. I've been speaking with Anne Gillaspie on the Purplepaw, where we spoke about hitting that bottom and then rising again, and at least in my opinion, how best to raise children so that they grow up and be the people who move the planet forward. So thank you again, Anne.
Thank you, Amy. It was great talking with you.